Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video. And with the race to world first underway and going on for some time, as well as a new season of Mythic Plus and PvP, there have been a lot of changes that have happened to classes, both buffs and nerfs. And in this round of changes, a significant round of buffs to check out. And if you want to make sure that you're staying up to date with everything World of Warcraft and never missing a beat and staying ahead of the competition, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because I do bring these changes to the channel basically in real time, and these ones are hot off the presses. Some of these changes are a bit of a surprise to me, at least because my focus is PvP, and a lot of these buffs I think are directed at PvE but will have implications in PvP. So we'll be making the following changes to increase the performance of select specializations in next week's realm maintenance. As always, these are subject to further change before they go live, and we'll have the final adjustments in our hotfixes update next week. This might mean that there's even more or less, so again, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Additionally, we're not planning on nerfing any overperforming specializations with this week's pass, as we want to gather more data and provide more advance notice. So right off the bat, we see a 5% buff to unholy damage, all abilities. I think in PvP, unholy DKs are pretty happy about this. PvE, obviously, you're pretty happy about this. Death Knight has been receiving buff after buff after buff, and it's following the same type of trends, at least in PvP, which is my focus, that we saw specs like BM Hunter got buffs in the past to just get into that dominant position, which perhaps Unholy Death Knight is now on track for. Feral Druid is receiving a 3% damage buff to all abilities. Pretty minor change there. And then a 10% damage buff to Primal Wrath, a 20% damage to Brutal Slash. Interested to see if that increases the viability for Brutal Slash in PvP or just enhances it even further. Swipe damage will be buffed by 15%, helping it out in AoE and Cleave. Thrash damage being buffed by 20% to help it out with AoE and Cleave. So some nice buffs coming in for Feral. Feels like Feral was looking like it could start this patch strong, and then it got its set bonuses really hammer nerfed, and then at least when it comes to PvE, but in PvP, this is going to make you even better. BM Hunters are also going to be receiving a 3% damage buff, as well as Beast Cleave now reduces damage only beyond 8 targets instead of 5, so to help out Beast Mastery's AoE and just give them a little bit of damage. So as a Beast Mastery Hunter, you're going to be pretty happy about this. When I first read this one and it said spinning crane kick damage increased by 30%, my heart sunk, like, wait a minute. And then I realized it's Mistweaver. Spinning crane kick damage has been increased by 30%. So in an attempt to, I would assume, help Mistweaver in Mythic Plus keys, try and get a little bit of extra damage out on pulls. It will help them in PvE, but in PvP, getting in there with a spinning crane kick as a Mistweaver, pretty risky. So unfortunately not going to be helping you out in terms of offense for PvP, which is really unfortunate. Now looking at Outlaw Rogue, Blade Flurry now strikes nearby enemies for 50% of the normal damage, up from 40%. So Outlaw got kind of like this really heavy-handed nerf at the end of BFA because it was so strong in Mythic Plus throughout BFA, and then in Shadowlands it completely fell off the planet after those heavy-handed nerfs. This might pull you back a little bit, again helping you out with your cleave damage. Curious to see if this will make Blade Flurry any better in PvP, because we're seeing Outlaw kind of creeping up a little bit. I thought that it had walked the plank and been drowned in below the ocean seas, but Outlaw seems to be making a little bit of a rise when it comes to PvP. This isn't exactly what you'd want to see to help it even further, but it might be a little bit interesting to see if it helps it at all with Cleave. Elemental Shaman, you are very happy to just see a 5% damage buff across the board, so this is going to really help you out, especially considering your recent set bonuses, increasing your Lava Burst damage by 20%, and your double legendary, allowing you to get even more damage out now as well. So Elemental getting put up a little bit of a bump up, and I think in PvP, this is where you'll feel this buff the most. In PvE, kind of wait and see. I'm not sure if Elemental is going to have the mechanics to perform after those changes to the way that its kind of machine gun lightning build was going to be working in PvE. Destruction Warlock also receiving a 5% damage buff across the board. So we're seeing Destruction rise up, at least in PvP, by a large margin. So getting an extra 5% on that. You can't really complain at this point, I think. As a Destruction Warlock in 9.2, you're getting even better. Now looking at Warrior finally here on the list. Ignore Pain is getting buffed, and this is for all Warriors, although these buffs seems to be directed towards Prot. So your Ignore Pain is going to be 55% of damage up from 50. And again, there's conduits that allow you to extend your Ignore Pain in PvP. So as an Arms Warrior, after those recent defensive stance nerfs, this is likely going to help you out a bit. And then we see some protection buffs that I was curious to see might help. Well, not help, but I made a video about Protection Warrior being strong in PvP because of the Shield Slam modifiers on that. And you could get Shield Slam crits up to 50 to 80,000. So Demoralizing Shout now reduces the damage enemies deal to you by 25% up from 20. So a little bit extra damage mitigation. Prot Warrior had the same type of treatment as Outlaw Rogue at the end of Battle for Azeroth because it was so potent and so prevalent. So now maybe they're trying to drag it back up into a better position. Ignore Pain now reduces the cost. Ignore Pain now reduces the cost of Ignore Pain to 35 rage. It was 40 rage. Interested about the language there. Spell Reflection cooldown reduced to 20 seconds, down from 25. Again, I think this is Prot only and not Arms or Fury, but maybe wait and see. And then Vanguard is going to reduce all damage taken by 15%, up from 10%. So a little bit of extra mitigation onto Warrior here. And again, these changes seem to be directed for PvE and maybe with like PvP implications as kind of like a side thing, like, oh, a little bit of extra damage, getting sustained damage up. Players have given feedback for wanting that. So it'll make sense to have some of these buffs carry over into PvP. I do wonder because it says that the check back for the final rounds. Also, if this means that there will be even more specifically for PvP because we have the tournaments underway and perhaps they're going to let the tournaments play out before they want to make any sort of big changes there. That could increase the viability of specs. I think right now the only thing that's really outstanding is kind of healer viability when it comes to PvP. Holy Priest is definitely in the forefront, ahead of the pack. It's getting its chance to shine. You know, Holy doesn't often get its opportunity to be the best healer, but it's definitely outshining the other healers, I think, now by a large margin in terms of output in both healing and damage. So we'll have to see what they decide to do, if anything. But this update makes me think that you'll definitely want to hit the subscribe button because it seems like they're going to keep doing updates. I thought that it was over, honestly. I was thinking, I don't have any more content to make here. There's no way they're going to keep making changes. But nope, they're still making changes and changes and changes. They most recently made an update to the way that Torghast currencies are going to be rewarded, which was really huge. So now you'll be able to buy Soul Cinders and Soul Ash for Cosmic Flux, which means you can just avoid Torghast, buy that box. And if you're I think it requires Friendly or Honored on one character, but then you can take that Cinders and that Soul Ash, go to Korthia, and then buy the boxes to mail to your alts. So even if your alts aren't at the rep, as long as you got one character at the rep range, you can buy those for Flux, which I have more than enough of. I can't get rid of the Flux, and then mail those to your alts and get some legendaries, or just pick up some legendaries for your main, because the legendary accessibility has been a big problem, and I think that change is going to help out a lot. They recently also increased the drop rate of a lot of the reagents to make these legendaries, so hopefully that means the gold price comes down, because I'm not about this dropping 100k, okay? Like, I ain't Jeff Bezos of World of Warcraft. I'm not dropping 100k when I want to change my spec a little bit and maybe play an alt. So hopefully the gold prices will come down with that as well. But other than that, I'm really enjoying that there's consistently changes being made throughout this. I'm enjoying 9.2, definitely the highlight, I think, for Shadowlands for me. You know, maybe Holy Priest is a little bit too strong, but I like that there's more specs, interesting builds, nice combinations to come up with. I love the experimentation that I can do. And if 10.0, like the next expansion, is even like, if this is a glimmer to what that could possibly be, it's got me really excited. But other than that, thank you very much for watching the video. I will catch you in the next one.